Hello, and welcome to Tip of the Day for Single Moms of Faith. I am Dr. Chanel Serano, and today we are going to be talking about spiritual and practical tips for raising a teenager. Yes, you heard me correctly, raising a teenager. I've definitely gotten some questions over recent weeks, and I thought it'd be a great opportunity to share just a couple of tips. And obviously, if you're wanting more information, you're more than welcome to grab a copy of my book or go to my blog as well, Doing Life with Christ. And I share some great tips there too. So I really wanted to start off by sharing the stage that our teenagers are in during this time. So for those who are familiar with Erikson stages of development, during this particular time, they are in a stage called identity versus confusion. What does that mean? So pretty much during this time, they are learning how to develop a sense of identity, who they are, separate from us, separate from parents, because the goal is, one day they are going to be adults, right? We're not going to be here always as their parents. And so part of our role as parents is to equip our children, to equip them with the tools that they need to be successful, to learn how to resolve conflict, to learn how to be assertive, to learn how to advocate for themselves, right? And develop all of these tools. And so we want to make sure that we are providing that and equipping them as they move into teenagehood, young adulthood, and, obviously further down the line into their adult years. So again, in this particular stage, identity versus confusion, our teenagers, they are really developing and learning to develop their voice, who they are, a sense of identity. So during this stage, you might see where the parent, although temporary, but the parent becomes non-existent, if you will. And so really we begin to see a lot of wanting to be around the friends, a sense of belonging. And to be honest, that is normal, okay? So we definitely, of course, want to make sure that we're mindful of the type of friends that they're being around. Okay, so that's something to definitely be mindful of, but that being around peers is very normal. And that this period of time can be confusing for them as well, because it can be scary, right? Because you're growing from being a child, you're in this in-between stage, and you know that your years of adulthood is coming soon, sooner than later, whether they're ready or not. And so it can be a very confusing period of time as well. Okay, so a couple of tips here. The first one is open-ended questions. I think oftentimes, and although meant in a positive way, and in an attempt to create dialogue with our teenagers, we like to ask questions. But it's not only about asking questions, but what type of questions are we asking? And so asking questions that are not closed-ended, but open-ended. Closed-ended questions are questions that result in a one-word answer, where they're saying, yes, no, fine, it was okay, right? We want to ask questions that allows them an opportunity to describe how they're feeling, their thoughts about something, describing their day, what happened specifically, and those type of things. Well, why did this happen, do you think? And really asking questions that's engaging and developing those critical thinking skills. So number one, again, asking open-ended questions rather than closed-ended questions. Number two, genuinely develop interest in things that they like, okay? And when I say genuinely, not just for the sake of, oh, I just want to learn something that they're doing just so I can somewhat pretend to be involved, but no, genuinely express interest in something that they like. And that's also a great way to develop a bond with your teenager as well. The next one is, do not be afraid of difficult conversations. And I say that again, do not be afraid of difficult conversations, because I guarantee you, if they're not having it with you, they're having the conversation with someone else. And so one thing that I have with, my son, my 19-year-old, over the years, is that I've always encouraged a very open conversation with him. And so nothing is off the table with me. And so I'd rather him hear accurate information from me as opposed to inaccurate information from others. And so having those conversations about sex, about sexuality, about relationships, drugs, dating, their spiritual life, as well as business and finance. One of the things that my son and I discuss now, even more recently, as he's venturing off and starting his own business, is we have conversations about entrepreneurship and business and finances. What does that look like? When he was younger, entering his teenage years, I taught him early on how to pay bills, on what an account looks like, on how to balance a check. And especially now that, everything is online, showing him what that process looks like. Okay, so I definitely encourage that as well. And then also to laugh with your teenagers. Have those moments, those times where, yes, we want to provide, depending on your parenting style, a structured environment, but also encouraging just time to just hang out and just really get to know your teenager and allow them to get to know you as well. Okay, and there's nothing wrong with that. And then the other thing that I would suggest too is being intentional, being present, and being impactful. And what do I mean by that? Being present means being in the here and now with your teenager, or actually your child of any age, putting down the phone and really having those conversations, or just being in their presence, even if it's silent, right? And you're not saying anything, but really being present in that moment, okay? Also being intentional. That means doing things on purpose, with purpose, and for a purpose, right? And then lastly, being impactful. Because at the end of the day, as parents, whether you're a parent, you're a godparent, a grandparent, a mentor, a pastor, anyone who speaks into the lives of the next generation, it is about legacy. And not only legacy for themselves, but within our family, within the community. So what legacy do you want to leave behind? A concept that my son and I often talk about is the wealth mindset, the mindset of wealth and the mindset of poverty. The poverty mindset is really focusing on lack, on the lack of what we don't have or what you don't have and what I may need in order to accomplish this. But a wealth mindset really focuses on growth, right? On focusing on the positive things, focusing on evolving, okay? And so we really tend to have those kind of conversations. And one thing, again, as I always say in all of my videos, is that remember that parenting is definitely not a destination. It is a journey for sure. And so remembering, I can remember from my own life, now that my son is 19, I treat him very differently compared to how our parenting relationship or my parenting relationship was like when he was 2. So when he was 2, I was holding his hand. I was making sure that he was not getting hurt, that he was protected, and constantly being next to him. Now that he's 19, I'm no longer holding his hand, but as he started to develop into teenagehood and getting older, learning as a parent for me to learn to step back and allow him to develop his voice. Because again, one day we're not going to be here. So we want to make sure that we equip our kids as much as possible. And so, especially if you have a biblical worldview and wanting to create that biblical foundation within your family. So just some things to think about. I hope these tips are helpful to you, and have a very blessed day. And I will see you next time.